Good morning, gentlemen. Today I'm going to talk about the Gurkhas in the Indian Army. आप जानते हो कि इंडियन आर्मी में बहुत सारे कॉम्प्लीमेंट जो है वो गुरखास की हैं एंड इसका बेसिस है एक एग्रीमेंट बिटवीन इंग्लैंड, इंडिया एंड नेपाल in 1947. This is called the Tri-Part Agreement, and this legalized the service of the Gurkha soldiers in the British and the Indian Army. In 1947, two battalions went to England. They opted to go there, and four came to India. And now the Indian Army has got a total of 11 battalions, and I think the total strength is about 39,000. And these include Gurkhas, who are Indians, and Nepalis. As far as Nepalis is concerned, I think we have about 30,000 Nepalis Gurkhas in the Indian Army. The Gurkhas have been part of the British Indian Army since 1816, to be very frank. That's over 200 years. That is the time when there was a war between the Gurkhas and the East India Company, and the Gurkhas were defeated. But the British realized the battle worthiness of these men, and they incorporated them in the British Army. And this continued after 47, and the British still, I think, have two battalions of the Gurkhas in the Royal British Army. But things have moved down the river a lot now, especially after the Agnipath scheme has come in. This, as I've already told you earlier, was the brainchild of General Rawat. And this man, I believe, had an idea that the Indian Army should remain perpetually young. And the Agnipath scheme was launched with the idea that the army will not have to afford a pension bill. That's number one, a large pension bill. And secondly, the basis of this was that the soldiers would serve for 4 years and go home with a package of money, which is not very substantial and not something we're going to last you the whole life. See, if you look at it theoretically, it's a good idea. Good idea in the sense that the army must always remain young. Yes, I agree. But then you have to keep the socio-economic condition of a country in mind. And this is something which we must understand. India is a poor country where we have a high rate of unemployment and a poverty level which still hovers between 35 to 40%. That's a large sum. Can't compare it with China, which has eradicated poverty. We haven't been able to do that. On top of it, this scheme has been launched, that is the Agnipath scheme. As I told you, theoretically, yes, the army must remain young, but then you've got to temper it with the socio-economic conditions. And Nepal is worse off than in India. So when this scheme was launched, the Nepalese government objected to it, and they said it violated the Tri-Part Agreement between England, India, and Nepal, and so they put a bar on recruitment on the Agnipath scheme. I don't think any Nepali has been recruited into the Indian Army after the Agnipath scheme has been put into force. The army chief has gone to Nepal to explain the scheme, and I think he's going again. But explain what? Explain nothing. Because the scheme says that you will work for 4 years and after that you will go home. Now it looks very rosy, but in a modern sophisticated environment with technical weapons, radar controlled weapons, artificial intelligence, you need men who have served at least 10 years to understand what's happening. And if you're going to send somebody home after 4 years, God forbid, look at the cost of training. I mean, whatever you're saving on pension or whatever it may be, you're going to spend a hell of a lot on retraining regularly all the people, all the new soldiers. And what will happen once these soldiers retire after 4 years and go away? What will they do? I think this is which General Rawat didn't think about it, and the government swallowed whatever General Rawat told them hook, line, and sinker, basically because they wanted to keep the financial burden low. See, everything is not related to finance. I think this Nehru realized later, and I hope Narendra Modi will also realize, because sometimes you have to sacrifice something to get something. And if you want India to be a great power, a superpower, you can't have this sort of scheme going on, which increases the liability of the public sector, the government, on an unemployment horde which will be coming into the country. The headquarters, the three service headquarters are giving a lot of advertisements and using a trumpet and saying, look, so many hundreds of thousands applied for Agnipath scheme. I mean, it's pretty silly. Even a layman will know that in India there are no jobs available, and somebody says, okay, let me take the job, जो भी मिलता है, जो मिले मैं ले लेता हूँ. So it's nothing to crow about. I would have appreciated if there was 100% employment in India, and then how many people had come and joined the Agnipath scheme. There is not unemployment, there is also underemployment. And now we have women also coming into the armed forces, so the avenues for the men are reduced. So you have to keep so many things in mind. And now Nepal has put a bar. Now, as I told you, the Indian army is having about 39 to 40,000 Gurkhas, and the situation is pretty grim. And the loyalty of these men, I think, cannot be taken for granted because it leads, it's a human nature. Now there are no new Gurkhas coming in. The older ones are going, and maybe the government has decided they don't need any more Gurkhas. There's a possibility. But it's something not so simple because China, I'm told, could recruit the Gurkhas. Nepal has got a communist prime minister, communist regime, and they have having a border dispute with India. They no longer look to India for everything. 3 trade routes have been opened between Tibet and Nepal to help the Nepalese, and Nepal has been given some $80 million as a gratis by the Chinese. No doubt, India and Nepal have very close relations for centuries, but the Nepali Communist Party doesn't think it that way. And I think we must understand that the geopolitical situation at the moment is that China calls the aces because of its military power, deep pockets, an economy of 18 trillion, and they can afford to spend. They have given millions to Pakistan, and they have given so much money even to nations like in South America, in Africa, to increase the Chinese influence. And I'm afraid tomorrow, if some of the Gurkhas join the Chinese army or make a brigade there or a battalion, and that would be a mighty blow to India. And the Nepalese, the Gurkhas who are in the Indian army at the moment, they will be wondering what is happening. I mean, how are we going to go and fight our own brethren? The Nepalese had fought very bravely in the 1962 war. Will they fight the same thing again when the Chinese are there and the opponents are the own brethren, the Gurkhas? With the Nepalese government playing double game? Gentlemen, it's a very tricky situation and it requires a statesman to come up. And I hope Narendra Modi is in the picture of what's happening. I'm sure he knows. You can't just go around thinking only कि I'm reducing the family budget. मैं तो pension budget कम कर रहा हूँ, defense budget कम कर रहा हूँ, and ये 4 साल की जो अग्निपथ स्कीम बहुत अच्छी है. It's not like that. मैंने जैसे आपको बताया, it's a good idea कि army remains young, yes, पर आपको सोशो इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन भी देखनी चाहिए. ये जो आर्मी बाहर आएंगे, these soldiers when they come out, what are they going to do? There was a statement by Mr. Anand Mahindra that we will give preference to those who are coming from Agnipath, and he is a well-known industrialist. But I have one question to ask him. एक सवाल का जवाब दीजिए कि अभी तक आपने कितने अग्निपथ यहाँ फोर्सेस के आदमी रखे हैं? आप you are in existence since 1947. How many have you kept? Percentage wise, 1%, 5%, 2%, 10% को रखे हैं आपने क्या? So idle talk, basically to buttress the government claim, is not the best way to move forward. So gentlemen, मुझे और कुछ नहीं कहना है. Situation मेरे लायकी की नहीं है। मैं आर्म फोर्सेस में रहा हूँ, एंड मेरे ख्याल में जो गुरखा रेजिमेंट्स हमारी बहुत ब्रेव है एंड बहुत ब्रेवली लड़े हैं, वेदर इंडिया के लिए या इंग्लैंड के लिए। आफ्टर ऑल याद है आपको, फाकलैंड की वॉर थी, उसमें अंग्रेज़ों ने गुरखा रेजिमेंट यूज़ की थी टू डिफीट अर्जेंटीना। दैट वाज आई थिंक इन 1983। और अभी भी गुरखाज ब्रिटिश आर्मी में हैं। और it's a very sad situation that we should come to this sort of stage like Agnipath and all that, because the economy has not moved forward। ये किसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है? इतनी बड़ी कंट्री, द वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट पॉपुलेशन वाइज कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड, इन द हंगर इंडेक्स इज वे बिलो 100। सो ये कोई इज नॉट ए मैटर ऑफ क्रेडिट। एंड देन यू ब्रिंग आउट दिस अग्निपथ स्कीम thinking that everything is hoki dory and India will be a great power or something like that. It's not going to happen. And if you continue schemes like Agnipath and the Gurkhas, tomorrow, as I told you, they are not joining the army, and the Nepalese government will, in due course of time, even appeal to the Chinese. अरे भाई कुछ ये Gurkhas आप recruit कर लीजिए, Chinese will do it and position them on the Indian border. तो ये बहुत एक foolishness है ये scheme जो है। एंड आई फील वेरी सैड कि गुरखास की रिक्रूटमेंट तकरीबन बंद ही हो गई है फ्रॉम नेपाल। न्यू रेजिमेंट्स आई डोंट थिंक विल बी रेज्ड, और इंडिया का एक जो बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग कनेक्शन था नेपाल के साथ, दैट विल बी ब्रोकन। जेंटलमैन, मुझे और कुछ नहीं कहना। इट्स ए वेरी सैड सिचुएशन जैसे मैंने बोला है, पर फिर भी लेट अस सी। मैं समझता हूँ कि विजडम विल dawn on Mr. Modi and he may rescind the scheme. If he doesn't, well, he's the Prime Minister of India. If he feels like that, we can't do anything. We can only comment and advise. We are not the executive authority. I close now, gentlemen, and say, Jai Hind, glory to India. Do subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and come back for more. Thank you, goodbye, and God bless.